Let me start with something small. Nothing dramatic. No disaster movie moment. One summer during a really hot day, the power suddenly went out, and I happened to be inside my bathroom. No lights, no fan, door stuck for a few seconds, and in that moment, for reasons that still feel a little embarrassing, I panicked. Not full chaos, just that sudden spike of heat, darkness, and wait, what if this gets worse? My brain didn't calmly analyze the situation. It didn't say, relax, this is temporary. It reacted. And here's the thing, that was a minor inconvenience, not a crisis, but it showed me something important. When the environment suddenly changes, even in small ways, our behavior changes before we realize it. Now scale that up. Real blackout, flood, evacuation, information gone, pressure rising. The biggest problems people face in those moments often don't come from the disaster itself. They come from predictable human reactions. So what we're really investigating today isn't the crisis. It's how people behave when the system breaks. Because when pressure rises, people don't suddenly become irrational. They become human. They hesitate, delay, trust the wrong signals, and fall back on habits. And sometimes those quiet reactions cause more trouble than the crisis itself. As we go through this, think about your own experience. How do you usually react when something suddenly goes wrong? Calm, confused, frozen? Let me know which of these feel familiar. So, before we talk about the specific behaviors, we need to understand the system behind them, the human decision system. Because here's the thing. In normal life, your brain is incredibly efficient. It runs on patterns, shortcuts, and habits. You don't consciously think about every decision. You just move, wake up, walk, cook, drive, respond. Most of the time, this automatic mode works beautifully. But now, remove stability. Lights go out, information disappears. Something feels wrong, but you don't yet know how serious it is. And this is where things start to shift. Under sudden stress, the brain doesn't become smarter. It becomes faster, and sometimes narrower. Instead of slow thinking, it switches to reaction mode. You've probably heard of fight or flight. There's actually a third response most people don't talk about much: freeze. And honestly, freeze is more common than people think. The brain pauses, scanning for clarity. It's trying to understand what's happening before committing to action. In many situations, that pause is useful. But in fast-moving crises, even a short delay can quietly change outcomes. Here's something interesting. The brain prefers certainty, even false certainty, over confusion. When information is incomplete, it fills gaps using assumptions, habits, and past experience. Usually, that helps us function smoothly. But during a crisis, those same shortcuts can lead us slightly off course. Not dramatically wrong, just enough to create friction. And this is where the pattern begins. Small delays, hesitation, misjudgment, nothing extreme, just very human reactions under pressure. So now the question becomes, what's the first and most common of these reactions? It starts with something surprisingly simple, the belief that things are still normal. So let's start simple. Normalcy bias is basically this. When something unusual happens, your brain assumes things will return to normal soon. It downplays danger. It tells you this isn't serious. This will pass. No need to act yet. And honestly, we all do this. You smell smoke, maybe it's nothing. The lights flicker. Probably temporary. Water rises a little. It won't get worse. The brain prefers a familiar explanation over a threatening one, because accepting danger means you might need to act. And action requires effort, uncertainty, and sometimes fear. So what happens? People wait, not because they're careless, but because the situation doesn't feel real yet. Our early warning signs often look small, manageable, even ignorable. And the strange part is, the more normal everything looks around you, the easier it is to delay. You still see your house, your street, your routine, so your brain says, things are fine. But here's where it gets interesting. In many real crises, floods, fires, evacuations, blackouts, the safest window is often the earliest one. When roads are clear, when movement is easy, when decisions are calm. And normalcy bias quietly eats that window. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just minute by minute. Waiting, rechecking, hoping it stabilizes, until suddenly the situation is no longer small. Now movement is harder. Options are fewer. Pressure is higher. And the strange part, most people don't realize this was happening while it was happening. So once delay sets in, what often comes next isn't action. It's hesitation. So after delay, sometimes comes something even quieter, freezing. Now, freezing doesn't mean panic. It's almost the opposite. It's that strange moment where your brain pauses because it hasn't fully processed what's happening yet. You're not running, not acting, just stuck for a few seconds, trying to understand. Think of it like your brain buffering. Let me give you a simple scenario. Imagine it's late at night. You hear a loud crash somewhere in your house. Not a small noise, something heavy. For a split second, what do most people do? They freeze. You don't immediately jump up. You don't instantly take action. You pause, listening, trying to make sense of the sound. Your brain is scanning, what was that? Is it serious? Do I need to move? Now, most of the time, it turns out to be nothing. Maybe something fell, maybe the wind, maybe just a harmless noise. And because in normal life that pause rarely causes harm, we don't notice it, but scale that moment into a real crisis. Fire alarm goes off. Water starts entering the house. Crowd suddenly rushes in one direction. Information unclear. And that small pause, even just seconds, can quietly cost time when movement matters most. Here's the interesting part. Freezing isn't weakness. It's the brain trying to avoid making the wrong move too quickly. But in fast-moving situations, not moving can become the wrong move. And once hesitation builds, people often start questioning something else. The warnings themselves. So after hesitation, something interesting often happens. People start questioning the warning itself. And honestly, this is very human. Warnings rarely feel urgent at first. A message says possible flooding. A notice says evacuation recommended. Weather alerts say conditions may worsen. Nothing feels immediate. Nothing feels dramatic. And because nothing looks dangerous yet, the brain starts calculating. Is this serious? Do I really need to move right now? What if this is overblown? Here's the thing. Humans don't respond to risk alone. We respond to perceived risk versus immediate inconvenience. Leaving early might feel unnecessary. Packing takes effort. Moving feels disruptive. And if the danger isn't visible yet, staying put often feels like the safer choice. So people wait. You see it again and again. Wildfires approaching, people delay. Flood warnings issued, people wait. Your storm surge alerts, people watch and see. Not because they're reckless, but because the situation doesn't yet feel real enough to justify action. But time quietly changes the equation. As conditions worsen, roads fill. Movement becomes slower. Stress rises. Information becomes less clear. And suddenly, what was once a calm decision becomes a pressured one. And here's the twist. When people start doubting official warnings, they often replace them with something else. Unofficial information, rumors, assumptions, what others are saying, and that's where behavior can drift even further from safety.